other day, I thought I heard you cry. You've been looking around and feeling down, and I just don't know why. You got everything you wanted, aren't I everything you need? Won't you sit down for a minute and just listen to me?
Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in today. Welcome to the Woolly Jenny podcast. I'm your host Jen, and this is going to be my podcast about knitting, crocheting, sewing, spinning, maybe some weaving, fiber prep, basically all crafty things. I am coming to you from Alberta, Canada, where I live with my family, my wonderful bearded husband, Dan, and our 4 lovely children. We also have a mini schnauzer, a puppy. Her name is Penny, and a yellow-sided conure bird whose name is Chewy. I decided to start podcasting because podcasting is fun, and I thought, why not give it a try and see where it goes? And I love watching other podcasters, and I always learn something or am inspired to do something new or discover a new yarn or a new technique that I hadn't tried before. And I thought it'd be fun to contribute to that, and hopefully you can have as much fun as I'm having and be inspired as well. I love crafting of all kinds. From a young age, I could be found doing many kinds of crafts, such as latch hook. I loved lettering and practiced calligraphy. I would paint, although I've never been very good at that. I learned to sew when I was young, and I just loved coloring, and anything I could make with my hands, I was eager to give it a try. So I started knitting about 5 or 6 years ago. We were putting our house on the market, and at that time I had spent most of my time quilting and scrapbooking, and those both make a big mess in the house when you're doing them. If you don't have a dedicated space, which I didn't, I would have to bring everything out and put it all away when it was done. So I wanted something that could still keep my hands busy and maybe even entertain me during a showing while we had to leave the house, or could just sit in a nice basket and still look clean and tidy for a showing for our house. So I picked up crocheting, as my mom crochets, and she had tried to teach me years ago, and I would always say, oh no, I can't crochet or knit to save my life. I'm horrible at it. Don't ever ask me. I just picked it back up and decided I was going to persevere until I got it, and with a bit of determination, some help from YouTube, I figured it out and got going, and eventually got a little tired of it. There's only so many stitches you can do and so many kinds of patterns, and the fabric in crocheting often looks similar. While I love crocheting and I think there's still a place for it, I was really intrigued by knitting and the different fabrics and different patterns, and there's so much more for knitting. I was always a little bit hesitant to start knitting because I thought it would be so much more expensive than crocheting. With crocheting, you just have your hook, your yarn, and you just go to, but with knitting I thought you needed cable needles, and you need a million sizes of needles, and you need markers and all this other stuff that you don't always need with crocheting, which, while it was true, I still ended up finding that the investment was worthwhile. And as I knit more and more, I find that sometimes, not always, but sometimes the more expensive yarns or the more expensive tools produce a much nicer finished object in the end that I'm happier with. So I see the investment as an investment and something that I'm willing to do. So I've been pretty obsessed with knitting since I got started, but really even more so in the last couple of years as I've discovered hand-dyed yarns and more independent colors and different things like that, and higher end yarns as well. Even some of the commercial yarns that are higher end. Visiting my first yarn shop opened me to a whole new world outside of what Michael's has to offer, and that was really exciting. So we are here in my craft room. I don't necessarily knit up here, as I don't usually have a lot of time to sit and knit at home, or if I do, I'm often out in the house where I'm with my family. But I do have my sewing space, and it's nice to have a space where everything can live. I thought it would be fun for this episode, since it's my first episode, to talk about some of my first projects, some of the first different things I've done in the different crafty worlds as I've been an adult. So I don't have a lot of the stuff that I crafted as a child, if any of it. It's kind of stored in my very poor memory. But I do have these first things that I've made as an adult. So I thought I would show you sort of in order of how I went down the craft tunnel. Quilting and sewing definitely was something that I started with. My mother-in-law is a beautiful quilter and has made me some lovely, our whole family, she has been quilting for a number of years and has made some lovely things. And this is a quilt that she had made for my 30th birthday. It's gray and yellow. And that's just a little sample of it. It's kind of big to show, but it's a lap size, and it's got this fuzzy gray back to it, and I love it. It's so heavy and lovely for an Albertan winter evening while I'm sitting there knitting. And so this was my first quilt that she helped me make. I love bright colors, and as you can see by the theme here and the theme here, I love rainbows. So I picked a very all colors rainbow quilt fabric. This is a lot brighter, I think, than it's showing up on camera. This is her, and I named her Snow Girls because she's got these, there are these snow girls on here, and their sign says shop till you drop. She's got a little handbag, and on the back is these ladies, and it says gone skiing. So it's also about a lap size, twin size, and that's my first quilt. My mother-in-law also taught me to read a sewing pattern for garments. So she taught me to sew when we were first married. We were very poor, and I was pregnant with no maternity clothes. So she took me to the fabric store, and we picked out some fabric and some patterns, and she taught me to read the patterns and how to make a garment that fit me and fit me well. And that was an invaluable lesson that she taught me, and I've used that knowledge over and over. If I can find a picture, I was looking for a picture of my giant self I gained 80 pounds with my first pregnancy, so I was just this massive boat of a pregnant lady. And if I can find a picture, I'm gonna pop it in there. Boop. If I can't find it, you just got a boop for no reason, so boop to you. But after that, so after sewing and quilting, then like I said, I got into crocheting, and this was my first crochet project. I made her for my daughter Rachel, and I had a stranglehold tension when I first started crocheting. I was determined to not have a loose, holey kind of fabric, so I was holding that thing so darn tight with this Lillian Cream cotton that I made this doll out of. So she kind of has a square head, and I ended up with a rub mark from the yarn on my finger. I can remember it was so raw, it was purple, and I had to take a few days off of crocheting because it was irritated so badly. And she did have a dress when I first made her, but when I pulled this out of Rachel's stuffy bucket, her dress wasn't there, and I thought it didn't matter anyways. So her name is Maya, and I also made one for her cousin Maya, and Maya named hers Rachel. So there's two of these out there, and the other one is in Alaska because that's where the cousin lives. I also have my first crochet doily that I ever made, and I was inspired. My husband Dan's grandma was also a crochet doily, and she made this wonderful doily, and a bunch of others that we have. And I love vintage things, so it's nice to be able to have heritage things out like that that reminds us of our grandparents. And I forgot, with the sewing, I also have this dinosaur that my Nana, my mom's mom, made for me when I was about 9. I had some dental surgery and was a bit sick with it afterwards, and so she made me this dinosaur and named him the Sichiosaurus. He's got little heart-shaped eyes and this little bib shield. I don't know what you call that on a dinosaur. Don't think it matters because he's not a real dinosaur, but that thing, it's actually removable. I don't know why. That must have been how the pattern was. And he does have a little injury, or she does have a little injury. So eventually one day I'll hand stitch this. But my Nana passed away when I was 15, so I keep this sort of in a safe spot. My kids don't really get to play with it or snuggle it, so I'm not too worried about that. Mwah! He's so cute, my Sichiosaurus. So my Nana had made that for me. So like I said, after crocheting, I decided to pick up knitting, and most normal people would knit maybe a scarf or a cloth to get started, but I figured since I already crocheted and I sort of understood tension, I didn't want a knit dishcloth or a knit scarf. I wanted a sock, so I started with socks. So my sister actually knits, and I enlisted her help as well as using a lot of YouTube videos to get started. And she was a very talented knitter. She made me for Christmas one year this wonderful hat, which has some pilling and needs some cleaning up, but doesn't matter to me. It's still lovely. So she made me this awesome hat, and then she also made me, it's a toque because I'm Canadian. She made me these wonderful purple cabled mittens, and they go nearly to the elbow, which is amazing. If you know anything about Alberta winters, they be cold. So these mittens I love. And I don't know the pattern for either of these. If you like them and you're like, I want to make them. But she is on Ravelry, and I'm sure she recorded it. So I didn't ask her permission to out her on Ravelry. So if you go into my friends, I don't have very many. You might be able to find her, but I'll look it up and I'll maybe put it in the show notes on the Ravelry page, which I haven't talked about yet, but there will be a Ravelry page called Woolly Jenny Podcast, and you can join me there, and there'll be giveaways and discussions and knit-alongs and all kinds of fun content there, and I'll put the show notes in there as well so that you know the patterns that I'm talking about. So I enlisted my sister's help. I picked up some super cheap Patton's Croy Socks yarn from Michael's. It came in a 6-pack. That's why I still have full balls with their labels on sitting around. But I only ever made one sock because I put the sock on after I knit it and decided I don't like the feel of that. So I didn't bother to make the second sock, and the first sock sadly is lost to the sands of times. I looked for it everywhere, can't figure out what I ever did with that darn thing. I probably went, I'm never going to wear this, and threw it out, which is a tragedy because that was my first ever knit socks. And now I love knit socks and maybe have just gotten used to the feel of wool on my skin. This yarn, this Patton's yarn is 75% washable wool and 25% nylon, but it's not like a merino blend, which often you'll get with indie dyers or anything super nice. So it's a little scratchy, and I think that bothered me at the time. I was not wearing a lot of wool and found it a little scratchy. So that's sad. So then I have my first sweater as well here in my Wonder Woman bag. And I thought for a sweater, I wanted to start with something really simple and something inexpensive, because at that time I was mostly still shopping for yarn at Michael's. So I basically just went to Michael's and picked some yarn in the right weight in colors that I liked. And I started with the caramel pattern. It's by Isabel Kramer, and it's just sort of a wrap cardigan. There's no buttons. It just kind of hangs there. It seemed really simple as a project to get started. However, if you're new to knitting, and you're thinking about starting a big project or even just any kind of garment that you're going to wear, you have to maybe educate yourself a little bit about fiber content. So I didn't do that and just grabbed this 100% acrylic yarn, which is not ideal for a sweater. Maybe you've knit a sweater with acrylic yarn and you love it and it's your favorite sweater. I would love to hear about that if you have done it. But for me, I kind of put this on and tried it on and I didn't like it. So I kind of lost steam with knitting it because I figured I'm never really going to wear it. But here it is. It's got this striping pattern. It's a royal blue and then a gray, and then the green isn't showing up exactly how it is. It's a bit brighter than what it's showing up, but it's like a bright grassy green. And I just did stripes similar to what you see in the pattern picture. But even just holding it like this, I don't love it. But I did just stall it on the cables. I've got my Knit Picks interchangeable needles, so I put the end on there, and then I threw a paper in here that just reminds me of what needle I was using. So if one day in the distant future I decide that I would like to finish this sweater, I can do that. And here is a ball of the yarn that I used. It's the Patons Astra, and it is just 100% acrylic. But I liked that it was washable and just made in Canada, kind of simple. Maybe this ball of green will show up better. Not really. A little bit more recently, I was looking for a present for my teenager who can be a little tough to buy for. And he's a big fan of Star Wars, and I had found Stitch Bucket on Etsy probably, and created him a cross stitch of some dancing stormtroopers. And he loved that. That was a fun, kind of sassy teenage thing to do. It makes me smile. So Stitch Bucket, if you're looking for some fun, silly, licensed character, sassy, they got some political, cartoony ones. I love sassy cross stitch. I think it's the funniest thing because we always think of cross stitch being kind of old ladyish or traditional, and so when you mix things up a little bit like that, it makes me laugh. So my Nana, my mom's mom, that made me the dinosaur, her other craft that she loved to do was cross-stitching. So she very much inspired me, and I have this piece that hangs in my craft room. As she got a little bit older, she decided to work on some heritage pieces, and she made a collection of angel cross stitches that she dedicated to her granddaughter. So she had them, I can remember them hanging in her living room wall, and then when she passed away, she had it in her will that each of us granddaughters would get one of these cross stitches. So this one is mine, and it hangs in my craft room and just inspires me and reminds me of my crafty heritage, I guess. And on the bottom it just says Angel of Grace. If you can see that. But it's a gorgeous, and she had them all framed and everything, and she wrote in the back, which I love, it has her handwriting, and it says made in 1994 with love, Betty was her name, for one of my granddaughters. So I love that. I love being able to see her handwriting and seeing her handiwork while I'm doing my crafting as well. Her sister was also a stitcher, my Aunt Renee, and she made some wonderful pieces that, like I said, I love, or did I say already? I don't know. I love vintage. I did. I was talking about this. I love vintage things, like I said. And she passed away. My mom had grabbed a bunch of the things from her place, from my Aunt Renee's place, and she didn't quite know what to do with them. And when I saw them, I had to have them. So this is one of them, one of her things that she had stitched. It's some wonderful ducks. And then there's a sister one to it that she had made as well, and the two of them hang together in my living room. Another thing that I have been getting into more recently is dyeing yarn. So obviously all the indie dyers out there, super inspiring. I love color. I love seeing what people do with color. So, and you know how I like a rainbow. So I wanted to dye, but without getting into professional dyes and having to have all the extra equipment. So I just did some Kool-Aid dyeing. And I got some bare yarn from Knit Picks, which is a great way to start if you're interested in dyeing and seeing what you can come up with. Grabbing a few hanks of bare yarn from Knit Picks is the way to go for sure. I grabbed their Stroll, which is 75/25 superwash merino nylon blend, and the Stroll Glimmer, so it's got a sparkle in it. And here is my little ball of... It looks a little muted, but it really is quite vibrant. And I did the Scatterbee sock pattern. So I haven't wound in the end yet, but there's my Scatterbee sock. And it pooled and everything, and that's fine with me. It's just socks. And so this was well over a year ago, and I started knitting them right away. And because I'm a lazy person and I have no project monogamy whatsoever, got distracted by something else and didn't finish. And look at this. What am I, like an inch and a cuff away from finishing these socks? Come on, Jennifer, really. One of these days. So these needles are Knit Picks fixed needles, and I clearly haven't needed to use them for anything else, so they're just sitting here in the sock. I think they're probably a 2.5 millimeter. This is my Starbucks You Are Here mug from Paris. My 13-year-old went to Paris in April for the 100th year anniversary. If you follow me on Instagram, you know this already, but for the 100th year anniversary of the battle at Vimy Ridge, Canada played a really big role in that victory, and so they were commemorating that and had a bunch of dignitaries there, and thousands upon thousands of people were there to memorialize that battle at Vimy Ridge. And so he is an air cadet and was able to go with his squadron on a trip overseas and be a part of that ceremony and experience it and visit a lot of the war history sites, both in the UK and in France and Belgium while they were there, which was such an incredible experience. And he knows how much I love my You Are Here mugs, so he brought that back for me. And I'm just drinking coffee because coffee. Coffee. So last October 2016, I had the wonderful joy of going to Knit City in Vancouver. It's a knitting market, conference, workshops, classes, all of those things in Vancouver. And it was amazing. If you don't know about it or you haven't been, I highly recommend looking into it and seeing if you can make it there. There is so many awesome, like the marketplace is amazing. And I took a spindling class. I'd had a spindle for drop spindling for maybe about 6 months or so before the class. I had just gone to my local yarn shop that caters to spinners and bought an Ashford drop spindle without any really knowledge of what I needed or how to get started. I just thought, well, I learned to knit and crochet and do some of these other crafty things with YouTube. I'll just watch some videos and go too. And it didn't work. It wasn't working for me, and I was getting frustrated and decided to take a class. So the class was Spindling 1.0 with Diana Twist. Hi, Diana. She's not going to watch this, but anyways, it was amazing. She is a phenomenal teacher. I've loved interacting with her after class on Instagram. She's a lovely, lovely lady, and I found the class extremely helpful. I am spindling way better now. I can actually accomplish something. And part of it was that I just didn't have the right spindle for what I was doing, and so I was able to buy one at her class, and it's beautiful. So I have the first bits of yarn that I spun in this wonderful yarn barf. And it sits here in this yarn barf because I'm not likely to ever do anything with this, but I just want to keep it for posterity to remember sort of those first spins, and it gets pretty thick and thin. Not nearly as thick and thin as I was getting on that Ashford spindle, so definitely having the right tool for the job is invaluable. It really helped me out. And then I had a bunch of fiber sitting around that I had bought but never been able to spin. So this was my next spin after that. It's about a bulky weight, and it's Northern Lights top. If it's focusing. Gorgeous. It is fairly toothy. I think it's just wool, I think. I don't think it specifies what kind of wool is, but my father-in-law loves a good scratchy wool, and it's a nice dark manly color. So I'll probably eventually knit him a toque out of this. And at Knit City, I also bought some fiber from Sweet Georgia Yarns. They're based out of Vancouver, and she has some beautiful fiber, and this was in the Tea Leaves colorway. And this was the next one that I spun. It's looking a little bit blue on the screen, but it is more purple. I'm trying to get it to focus. And then I went to an alpaca farm early this year and bought some raw fleeces that I opened up and processed myself, just washing them carefully. And then I have some hand carders, so I was able to make some roll eggs to spin from. I then dyed the alpaca a teal green color, and thought that I would ply it with some other wool, processed wool and dyed wool that I already had. When I went to spin the alpaca on its own, though, I found that it was too slippery, so I took some similarly colored wool that I had, I think it was a Corriedale, that I had in my stash, and combined them together and then spun them like that, and it spun up really nicely. And then I did with black merino top and some white wool fiber. So this is what I came up with. It's a 3-ply. Focus! And as you can see, it's pretty hairy, and it actually feels pretty scratchy too. Like this will not be a next to skin garment, whatever I make with it, if I even make anything. I'm pretty just proud of this because this is from animal to yarn, basically. So taking it that step further to garment would be really great, but I think I'll do that in the future with other stuff. Those are my firsts. I would love to see your firsts. I'm going to put a thread for that in my podcast group. And if you would like to show me your first project of any kind, knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, dyeing, whatever kind of first you feel like showing, I'd love to see a picture of that in the Ravelry group, and we can see how far we've all come from our first project. Or maybe you're new and you've just made something and it's your first thing, and we would love to celebrate you. We can move on now to some finished objects, some things that I've created recently. Since this is my first episode, I don't have any, technical first objects that you've seen in progress, but I thought I would show just a few, one thing of each kind that I've recently finished. So like I said, I went to Knit City back in October, and while I was there, I had went to the Sweet Fiber booth, and she has amazing yarns, and I really loved the Bradway wrap by Shannon Cook. So I picked some cashmerino worsted from Sweet Fiber. Here's her card. That came on the... So it is cashmerino worsted, 80 superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, and so I got 3 colors. I got the Ina's Red, Driftwood, and Chartreuse, and I made a beautiful Bradway wrap. If you'd like to see it, you can check my Ravelry projects or stalk me on Instagram and go back a little ways and you'll find it. I wear it constantly. But I did have a fair bit left over, and we've got a family at church having a baby here at the end of June, and I thought it'd be nice to knit up him, it's a boy, a little sweater for this winter. So I I've seen lots of people doing the Tin Can Knits flax pattern and wanted to give it a try. So I thought a baby sweater would be a perfect way, and I had all this cashmerino worsted left over. So here is his sweater. As you can see, I have this little red strip here. So what happened was, after I got knitting, I was on the very last section and I was playing yarn chicken in a bad way and didn't have enough. So I just had lots of red and was like, whatever, this baby is going to have a red stripe in his sweater. This is the most luxurious baby sweater ever. I don't think it matters that it has a red stripe. If I was fussy, I could have gone back and went into this sleeve and matched another red stripe, or I could have put like a red with a little line of green so it sort of matched this. It's a baby. If you could feel this, you wouldn't care either that it has a random red stripe on it. Or maybe you would, but that's just not my style. So here's the finished sweater. Be super cute. And this flax pattern is fantastic if you're new to sweater knitting. As I kind of am. I've done another Tin Can Knits pattern, cardigan, but I haven't done a pullover sweater yet. So this was a great way just to practice and try it out, and less commitment. I think it only maybe took me a week, if that, to whip up. So I highly recommend the flax pattern. And this is a little garter stitch piece that you do down the sleeves. And if you don't like that, you don't have to do it. You can just knit all the way down the sleeves. I've seen lots of people modify the pattern. Or, I added these stripes on my own. You could add color work to the front of this. You could do some, the pattern is endless. You could do so many things with it once you've knitted and you know what you're doing. It's really easy to customize. I did another baby project. My son Silas, who's 9, plays hockey, and he's a goalie, and he has a dedicated goalie coach that he does work with, and he's fantastic, and we really love him. And he had his wife, they had their first baby, I think probably March or April. It was a while ago, and it's June now. I haven't given them this yet because weaving in ends is the worst. That's why. So I knit her this sweet little baby blanket. It's the Chevron baby blanket and chevron throw by Karen Mackey. So it comes in 2 sizes, and super easy to memorize this pattern. I would take it with me everywhere. Just knit. Really went together really fast, but just sewing in all of these ends is a pain, and I haven't bothered to do it yet. And since the recipient we don't know them that well, and I wanted to give them, and of course it's for a baby too, so you want it to be easy to care for and easy to wash. So I just used some Sugar Spun by Loops and Threads. It's the Michaels brand, but it's actually quite soft, and I thought it would be good for a baby garment. It's machine washable and dryable, so I don't have to worry about how they care it or even tell them anything. It's 98% acrylic and 2% wool, and so those, I used about a ball and a third. These are the leftover balls. And lastly, the latest socks that I've done. These were for my daughter Rachel. She's 11 and she has about a lady's size 6 foot. And these are knit with Knit Picks Felici or Felici, however you choose to pronounce that. And I used Sweet Georgia has a Tough Sock box set that's a gradient. So this is the gray-black gradient. And I really love having a contrasting heel and toe or complementary heel and toe. Especially when I'm knitting with stripes, I find that when you knit with a self-striping pattern, when you put that into the heel, it just kind of gets jumbled, and I like the clean lines look of this a little bit better. So I used that heel and toe. And these are just a vanilla sock. You could check my pattern notes if you want to know how much I cast on and how much I increased, but I just tried them on for Rachel's foot and made sure that they fit her very well. And this is the Fish Lips Kiss heel. When I first got started knitting socks, I followed patterns and did some pattern socks, and since have just discovered that I just really love knitting a vanilla sock. I just like that I can just knit and don't have to think about a pattern or do anything extra special, and they turn out really cute just the same. So I used Judy's Magic Cast On, and I think this is a 2x2 knit purl rib. And so shipping anything basically to Canada from the States is stupid expensive. So I go together with my friend Lisa, and when we order anything yarn wise, we always check with each other and add to the cart so that we can save on shipping. And when I ordered these, I did not realize that they came in only 50-gram balls. So I actually can't I have like 4 or 5 now 50-gram balls of this Knit Pick Felicie that I'm going to have to knit tiny little ankle socks with, that I had hoped to knit socks for myself with. But I think if I use a contrasting heel and toe and maybe even a contrasting cuff, I'll get away with a decent sized pair of socks. My feet are about a lady's 9, so I think I can get away with it. I did still have a little bit left over with these, so I could have made her a little bit taller of a sock, but she likes a good ankle sock, so these are just right for her. And I'll work that extra leftover yarn into something else later on in life. I've also been making some bags. I go a lot of places with my knitting. This weekend was Worldwide Knit in Public Day. And while I didn't get a chance to get out and knit in public, pretty much every day for me is Worldwide Knit in Public Day. So I love my project bags by different makers that I have, but I find that I go to a lot of dirty places where I need something a little bit more durable when I take things with me. So I created my own bags and put waxed canvas on the bottom, and then I used a proper fabric wax and waxed it. So this is kind of an homage to my quilting days, and I added this little, because you know how I love a little matching Progress Keeper zipper pull. I'm trying to turn it around for you. And it's got a little gem on it too. And then I just so this is a waxed canvas bottom, so I can put it down in the dirty hockey arena. If you're in Canada and you've been in a minor hockey arena, they are filthy. So I can put it down in the arena without issue. And I just like a nice, solid, light-colored interior so I can easily see what's down there in the bottom of the bag. So I made that one, and I made a scooter one. And with this fabric line, there was also VW Bugs and Vans, and you can see that one on my Instagram if you want to stalk me. Stalking is fun! But I have since given those ones away. Recently, I've been collecting pins, and I wanted a bag that I could show off my pins but still have that durable bottom. So I picked a printed bottom canvas and waxed that. And then just did a solid color top so I could show off my pins. How fun! This one is Knit Two Together Club. This one is Nature's My Friend. This one, I believe, is Boy Girl Party. And then these two, I Don't Care, and Nope, are from Stash. I got those at Stash Needle Lounge in Calgary. So it was fun to come up. And then this one, again, with the solid color interior. And then I also made myself a little matching Notions pouch. I just carry along a tiny little pair of scissors and some Progress Keepers or stitch markers, things like that. And so that's all I needed, was something really tiny to throw in there. And I have this measuring tape on my wrist that I almost always am wearing. That's from Brick Bubble, another Albertan maker, and she does needle gauges and measuring tape bracelets and buttons with all of this like laser printed stuff. So you can look her up. She's awesome, lovely lady. We've met a few times. I also made this one in orange because I've been loving all things pink and orange lately, even though pink is really not my favorite color, but for some reason, yeah. So those are my recent bags that I've been making. After doing that Kool-Aid dyeing, I decided I liked it. I wanted to dye, so I bought myself a separate dye pot, and I got some greener shades dye from Knit Picks because I thought that was a good beginner way to do that, and there's no heavy metals in it, so you know, if you don't exhaust your dye bath because you haven't quite figured out all the ins and out of dyeing, it's okay to pour it down the sink, things like that. So I like those greener shade dyes as a beginner. So a few months ago, I had done a little bit of dyeing, and I made this skein. It's like a nice teal with kind of a pinky red, and then I did some gray, and I did some black speckling in here as well. I wanted to try speckling because I love speckles, and to see how that went. See those speckles in there. So that was a fun little experiment and showed me that I do really love dyeing and I want to do more of it. And I'm trying to become a better skeiner. It's just not going to happen on camera. So what I am working on, first I'll show you some socks since we're already talking about socks. Yay, socks! I picked up some on live. I don't know. Is that what that says? On live super sock, neon. 100 gram, 420 meters. It's a 75% virgin wool and 25% polyamide or nylon. I think they're interchangeable. So there's the ball of yarn. Here is one of the finished socks. And again, I use Sweet Georgia, that gradient kit that I have of the minis, for the toe and heel, and a 2x2 cuff. And I'm using these Haya 9-inch circulars. If you haven't tried 9-inch circular needles yet for socks, you should. I love it. I find it so easy to just put a lot of rows on. Before, I was using Magic Loop method and sometimes DPNs as well, but I prefer Magic Loop, and I find that this just goes so much more quickly when I don't have to drag the cable through and stop every half a row. And I mean, obviously you get pretty fast at doing that, but this is that much faster. It does take me a few minutes to kind of get into a rhythm because the needles are so tiny and kind of finicky. You're kind of holding it little, but once you get going on them, it's so fast. When I need to do the cast on for the toe or the heel, if you're doing like a heel flap and gusset, I'll just use my ChowGoo needles, the long Magic Loop, or I'll use DPNs for that because it's you can't cast on toe up socks on the 9-inch circulars. You probably could for a cuff down, but not for toe up. I also have this cute beginning of round marker. It's just basically a little circle, plastic circle that I had got. It's from Coco Knits. And this is what they look like. Gonna fall out. And they're rainbow, so of course I had to have them. I got them from Sea Turtle Fiber Arts at the Calgary Fiber Shindig, and I love using them. They go up to a 4.5 millimeter, but you can also get a bigger size as well. There's 2 sizes of them, and they're perfect for a beginning of round marker. They're easy to slip, and they're small. They don't hang and get in the way, because sometimes I find the other kinds, you're just having to keep them out of your way. That one's nice because it's not in the way. And this is my project bag. It's from Ginger Snap That, and it came in a kit with yarn ink, a matching yarn that goes with. And she put a little progress keeper on it. It says the little arrow, and it says camp. It's like a little signpost. It's super cute. So that's what project bag I was using for that. This one is Polka Dot Creek, and I love these feathers, and it's got a really nice handle on it here, and the feathers, that gold, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but it's actually sparkly, which is so pretty. This is another pair of socks I'm working on. This yarn is from Sea Turtle Fiber Arts. It's her Ridley sock, but I can't remember the name of the colorway, but it's a tonal gray with a neon rainbow, which is basically what I was trying to achieve with that first hand-dyed yarn I ever made. I mean, not with the gray, but that fluorescent rainbow. So when I saw this yarn at Knit City in October, I had to have it. And this is the sock. I decided to do cuff down on this one, which is not what I'm used to, but I wanted to try casting on with those 9-inch circulars. So these are my ChowGoo 2.5mm 9-inch circulars, and I just have some stoppers on the ends of them because I find they're quite slippery, and because it's a fairly wide sock, that it'd be easy for the stitches to fall off in the project bag, and that would be super frustrating. So there's the yellow contrast again. This time I did a cuff as well, is Knit Pick Stroll, just in yellow. I don't know if they have a fancy name for yellow. I can't remember. And this bag also came, well, I don't know that it came with it, but I also bought the matching little DPN case. So I have my DPNs, my 2.5mm ChowGoo DPNs in there that I'll use for doing the toe once I start to decrease on the toe. Oh, and she also put a little, I love that, little progress keeper on the zipper pull as well. I mean, it could be a zipper pull or a progress keeper. You could do whatever you want with it, but I just think it's cute when it matches the bag. It makes me happy. I like matchy things. I'm also working on a couple of sweaters. I started for myself a few months ago. Tin Can Knits had collaborated with a bunch of other designers and came out with a charity book called Heart on My Sleeve, where they were donating the profits to charity. And I thought that was a really neat idea. And I love how the book has sort of a recipe for your sweater, and then each pattern has ways that each sweater is different. And then within the book, they also have a bunch of different motifs for actually putting a heart on your sleeve, which is so cute. I love it. So I've been trying to decide which one I was going to cast on, and I ended up going with Hearthstone by Isolde Teague. I hope I said that right. And I had mentioned earlier where I find wool a little bit scratchy, so I had to be pretty selective with what yarn I went with, and ended up going with something kind of non-traditional, but I'm excited to see how it turns out. So this is the beginning there. It's a bottom-up sweater pattern, and right now it's just, I did the ribbing, and now it's just knit, stockinette. And this is my little beginning of round marker that I had got at the Calgary Fiber Shindig. And that is from, this was the little bit that it came with. That's from Purple Gecko Studios. And I have 3 boys, and they love Lego, so I had to have that. And I just think this little grumpy guy is so funny. This is being knit on my very first pair of Signature Needle Art needles, and they're amazing. They're everything they're cracked up to be. Save your pennies and buy yourself a pair. Thankfully, I didn't have to. My friend Lisa, my wonderful Lisa, I had been driving her daughter to our Bible study class this past year because she was going to a different class. She still wanted her girl to go to the children's program, and so she bought me these as a thank you, which was incredible. So she asked me what size I wanted, and I picked this size because I knew I could get gauge with it for this sweater, and I figured I wanted to get my first needles I have a whole book of patterns that are this size for sweaters, so I know I'll use this one a lot. And with Signature Needle Arts, I think one of the things I love the most about these needles is the cable is a swivel cable, so I'm holding the cable tight and I can turn the needle, and I'm gonna lose stitches. And it keeps all the kinking and stuff, sort of this flopping that if you ever knit with needles like this, you'll know that you kind of sometimes have to straighten it out if your cable is fixed, and I love that this one swivels. The sad thing about signature needles is that every cable is different for every needle size. So if you have a size 6 signature needle, you have all these cables that go with your size 6 needle, and that's it. They're not truly interchangeable. So great marketing, Signature Needle Arts. I'm sure they're making a fortune. I'm not sure why they can't make it totally interchangeable, but the join on them is pretty much unparalleled. So that's probably why that they're trying to protect that amazing seamless join. And I love the tips on them as well. These are the stiletto tips. They're super, I love the length of the tip, that it's so long, and they're so pointy, like dangerously pointy. Be careful. So, and then like I said, I want to do that little heart motif on my sleeve. And so the yarn, I should tell you about the yarn I'm using. The yarn I'm using is from Juniper Moon Farms. It's called Stargazer, and it is baby llama and silk. So it is 70% llama, 30% silk, and it says finest baby llama and silk, and it is divine. You should get your hands on some of this. It is easily the softest. Like, I cannot wait to wear this sweater. It's heavy, so my sweater is gonna have a little extra ease to it, and it's gonna be a little, basically like a big blanket. I want it that way. I'm excited about that drapey sort of growing almost sweater. I hope it doesn't grow too much, but it's kind of an experiment. We're gonna see how it goes. And then I also got just Estelle Yarns Baby Alpaca DK, and it's like a wine color. The color's showing up actually really great on there. And that's going to be a little heart motif. Maybe on one sleeve, maybe on both sleeves. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. It doesn't have to be totally symmetrical. I don't need that in my life. I'm fine with it just being kind of funky. So I might just do one sleeve and call it good. The other sweater I'm working on is for Silas, who is 9. Earlier this year, I knit a Jones sweater by Tin Can Knits for Ben, my 6-year-old, and it's kind of an old man cardigan with some cabling, and I used a gray tweedy yarn, and Silas has been wanting one as well. So when Jenny Weeb of Vangie Knits posted, and she had tagged me as a potential test knitter for this pattern, I saw it, and I was like, it's perfect for Silas. So I'm just looking for my project bag. So this bag, I didn't talk about this bag. Not that you need to know, but this is just a bigger bag that I made myself, and I thought it was cute that it kind of has these llamas on it because it's llama wool inside, and these are old jeans. I love upcycling, so I used some old jeans for the bottom of this to make it durable. This is actually a tote more than a project bag, but I had bought that from the Loop, Kensington in Calgary when I was there recently, and I just think it's super cute. So I didn't ask Jenny how much I'm allowed to show of this test knit, but I figure by the time this is edited, she's going to have the pattern out, so it should be okay. It's due just in a couple of days, so I'm nearly done. So the yarn I'm using is Barocco Vintage. I'm just looking at my notes. Barocco Ultra Alpaca, and it's in the colorway Barley. So this is the Barocco, and it's fairly soft. It'll be a good like boy's sweater. He likes it. He thinks it's warm and cozy. He doesn't mind. I don't know that I would knit a sweater with it for me. I find it a little bit scratchy, but like I said, I'm fairly sensitive, so I think probably most people would be fine with it. And then this, ta-da! I adore this yarn. this is Woolen Boone. She is one of my favorite indie dyers. I love how everything of hers is just so colorful. So it's like a grass green, a navy teal, blending to like a chartreuse and a yellow, and Silas says this is all his favorite colors. So it was the perfect yarn to use for him. And the colorway is called Green Leaf Hut. And I love her marketing. She sends you a little thank you card or she did for me. I'm sure she does for every package. Love, Sonia, and it has my name on it. Yeah. And then her business card is actually like printed washi tape. How cute is that? It won't totally focus. Camera's being a pain. But yeah, the tape wraps around. I'm sure that's more work for her, but it's awesome. So this is size sweater. So it's a cardigan with this stranded color work, and she calls these little pops of color arrows. And so it's really showing up all the variegated colors of this Woolen Boone yarn in it. I think it's coming together really well. I hadn't seen one of the other testers did a complete button band and collar and cuff and everything in the contrasting color that was in the arrows. And I loved that, but I was worried I would run out of the contrasting color. So instead, and I also kind of hope to have a little bit left over maybe to make a little boy's hat, toque or something like that. So I decided to do, somebody else had done just their last row and then their cast off row in the contrasting color. And so I love the way that just showcases the color a little bit more. And I'm on sleeve number 1 and then second sleeve, and he'll be ready for buttons. And there you go. I've loved knitting this pattern. It's so simple. The color work may seem like a little bit intimidating, but actually it was really easy to pull along. And here I just let it go between, there's 5 stitches between, and I just let it go. But in the sleeves I wrapped it in the 3rd stitch, and there's YouTube videos out there for that. Lots of ways to figure out how to do that. I started the project using Haya needles. I've been really wanting to try Haya needles, and so I've heard that they're sort of comparable to ChiaoGu's, and I'm a huge ChiaoGu fan. I love their long tips, and I love how pointy they are. And I love the cable on ChiaoGu's. I find it really memoryless, which I really like. There, you just drop it, and the cable, everything falls. There's no coil to it. But I was really underwhelmed by the Haya. I decided to go back to my ChiaoGu's because I just like them better. The cable on the Haya reminds me of an Addy cable. It's that blue clear color. And I'm just looking for it here so I can show you. It has a little bit more memory, where a ChiaoGu cable is just going to fall straight. This one is kind of, staying in its circular thing. The needle tip is great. I do like the needle tip of the Haya. And let's see if we just compare them to ChiaoGu right side by side. The ChiaoGu is just like maybe a millimeter or 2 longer. So you see that? So I don't know that I really noticed much of a difference, but I just find for when you're increasing or decreasing, you really got to get into a stitch. I like that longer tip length. It makes it that much easier. And I've learned as I've gotten more and more into ChiaoGu to really despise my Knit Picks needles. The tip is just not nearly as long, not nearly as pointy. And so I'll use my Knit Pick needles for just simple knitting, but when I have to increase or decrease, I try to use my ChiaoGu's. ChiaoGu, like a interchangeable set, is definitely a wish list item for me, but I'll just stick with my Knit Picks ones for now, and I have a few of the ChiaoGu fixed that I have in certain sizes that I use a lot. That's it for my works in progress. Oh, those are my knitting works in progress, but I thought I would also show crochet work in progress and a spinning work in progress. So another couple at church is getting married, and I thought, I have never fully crocheted a granny square blanket, and I have really wanted to. The recipient, however, I don't think would appreciate a traditional granny square blanket, so I'm knitting squares, but I decided to make it into a bit more modern of a pattern. So I created for myself this little plus shape one. I had seen it online somewhere and just sort of made my own. So it'll kind of give a modern twist. And then I used the colors from their wedding invitation because I figured it's a sure bet that they like those colors. And I just bought cheap acrylic yarn from Michael's. Again, it's just very washable and very durable. And when you're knitting or crocheting a big blanket for somebody as a gift like that, I needed to keep the cost reasonable. And sorry about the crinkling, I just had this yarn in a bag. So it's Bernat Super Value. Here is 4 of the colors. And then the last color is like a seafoam green, and it's Fentex worsted. That's actually showing up quite accurate. So this is the shape of the square, which was just a free pattern I found somewhere online. I like that it has the little circle in the middle. That's a magic circle that you do in the middle, and then you do 10 stitches into that and 10 double crochets into that, and then you just increase going outwards. So those are the squares, and I'm doing, like I said, solid colored squares. So it's nice because sometimes with a granny square blanket you do like a starburst pattern where it's got one color and then another color and then a finishing color for the square, and they're super colorful and really pretty, but I didn't think the recipient would really like that. So I liked that this pattern had that circle still in the middle to give it some visual interest, but then it'll still be this plus pattern. So that they are getting married mid-July on the east coast of Canada, or east, it's not coastal, but the east end of Canada in Ontario. So by the time they get back, I should be done it. Fingers crossed. I'm notorious for not finishing things on time. But I have that in a basket just in my family room, so it's easy for me to just pick up and crochet a few squares as we go. I'm also doing a spinning project. This is my spindle, as I had talked about, that I had bought from the Diana Twist class. And it's gorgeous. It's got this wonderful knot, and it's beautiful. This that I am spinning is Three Waters Farm. She's from North Carolina. Yep, North Carolina. Marianne Pagano from North Carolina, and I will link to her shop. You should definitely go look them out if you're look at her stuff if you're a spinner. She has so many gorgeous colorways. It was really hard to pick just one, but this is the fiber. It's called Cold Outside, and it is 40% merino, 40% superwash merino, and 20% Tussa silk top, and it's really soft. I'm trying to get quite a small gauge with this. I'm going to ply it, just a 2-ply, and then I will hopefully work it into a shawl or something like that. So it's, I'm trying to show you, but it's super, super fine. I'm hoping to get fingering weight out of that. So that would be my first handspun fingering weight if I can do it. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. The next thing I thought I would show you is some Q knitting stuff that I'm going to cast on next when I have a few projects done, or maybe if I get bored of my projects and want to cast on something new. That's how I roll, and that might drive some people crazy. I know a lot of people like to have something off the needles and then something else comes on. I don't live by rules, apparently, so that doesn't matter to me, so I just cast on something new when I'm ready. So like I had said, maybe briefly, I went to Calgary recently, and they had their fiber shindig there. At that time in Edmonton, we didn't have a yarn market or any kind of knitting market or anything where you could go and have all those indie dyers in one spot. So I decided to take the little truck to Calgary, and while I was at it, they have about 6 local yarn shops, so I did my own little yarn shop tour, and I've been looking to find my fade, but not in the shawl version. So I had seen, I'm just moving my project notes, I had seen the Find Your Fade shawl and thought it was gorgeous, amazing, but so much yarn and so much, I hear lots of people like, oh, I get so tired of it, and I don't have that kind of self-discipline or staying power. So when she came out recently with the So Faded sweater, I was like, that is for me, I can do that. So I started with this Hue Loco. This one's called Starling. It's on her spun sock. It's 80-10-10 superwash merino cashmere nylon. And I love the peachy pink and the bits of darker color, this speckle, and it's like kind of even a foresty green. Gorgeous and super soft. I love the cashmere merino blend. I'll definitely be able to wear that. And then I had done the Hedgehog sock club recently, and I picked the twist sock, which is 80-20 BFL Blueface Leicester and 20% nylon. And of course with Hedgehog, you're always going to get some good speckling, some lovely vibrant colors here under the label. And I thought, when I got that, I thought those pair beautifully. I love the way that those pair. Those could fade awesome. So I was procuring more so that I can cast on my So Faded sweater, and had picked up these 2 from the Calgary Fiber Shindig. This one is Prairie Dye Studio, the lovely Melissa. And this is her Anna sock. It's 80-20 merino nylon. And I thought it went really well with these 2. And then I also got the Fiber Goddess, has this wonderful, this is her cash blend. It's called Juicy Fruit. It's Gonna Move Ya, and it's 80-10-10 superwash merino nylon. Yeah. And so I had all these together, and I laid them out, and I was like, they all kind of look the same. Like, it's too similar. And I want that kind of faded look where you start with one color and you fade into different colors, and by the time you're at the end, you're like, how did we get to that different color? Whereas these just sort of seem like they're too similar altogether. So I've decided to stick. I'll still use the other 2 skeins in other projects, but I've decided to stick with these 2 because I love how they look together. So now I'm trying to find more stuff to fade into with these. I just haven't yet. So stay tuned for that dream project that I will one day do. The other thing I got was I've created sweaters for the boys and socks for Rachel, and I've done socks for the boys as well, but I haven't done anything for my oldest boy, Eli, who, like I said, is a air cadet. So at our local yarn shop, they have these hat trick yarns, and it's colorways inspired by NHL teams. So this one is the Columbus colorway, and it's a wonderful navy with a little pop of white and red, which is our Royal Canadian Air Force colors. That's their symbol, is a Canadian, like a red maple leaf in the middle, and then a blue circle, red and white and blue. It's basically the same as the Royal Air Force, but with the Canadian maple leaf in the middle was how it was distinguished as separate. So that will make some awesome socks for him that I think he'll really enjoy. And then I got, because I like my heels and toes, so I got the Hat Trick Semi-Solid. This colorway is called Top Shelf. And these are both dyed for the yarn shop by Ancient Arts Yarn, which is another Alberta, I'm pretty sure, indie dyer. I participated in the Fiber Share this spring. If you don't know about Fiber Share, I'll link to them as well. It is a really fun swap program where you pay a little bit of money, you get your swap partner, you send something off to someone, and someone else sends something to you. And my partner, I picked spinning as my main craft this year, and my partner was from the Yukon, which was so neat. She sent me some amazing Yukon fire roasted coffee beans. They were so good. I need to order more. I'm sure I can order them online. They were so good. I drank them with much urgency. And she also sent me something really neat that I'd never seen before, a little package of muskox. And if you don't know what a muskox is, maybe I'll boop in a picture for you. Boop. That's a muskox. So it says on it, naturally bleached, harvested off the tundra. So that gives me the impression that this is like what a muskox had shed and was picked up off the tundra. It does have some vegetable matter in it. So, and I'm not sure that if it's just tufts of it, it doesn't appear to have been carded or anything. So that's going to be my next spinning dream project. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that recently I've been spending some time out at a friend's sheep farm and cuddling baby sheeps and feeding them with bottles, and that has made me all kinds of happy. And she sent me home recently with some fleeces from her sheep, and so I am planning to process that as well. That'll be the first time I'll be washing wool from the fleece and getting that lanolin off and going through that whole thing. And I might card that in with some of this and try to make a blend or see, because I'm not sure how this, I don't know what the staple length is of this. That's how long is each individual fiber, and that matters for when you're spinning. If it's too short, it makes it hard to spin, and so sometimes you have to blend it. Or if it's slippery like alpaca, you need to blend it with other stuff if you're hand spinning. To get something more spinnable. At least with drop spindling, I don't own a spinning wheel. I'm not a spinning expert, so but that's been my experience so far. So I'm excited to play with that muskox. Next up, I will show you a few of my new yarn babies and the things that I have bought as I've been out and about. When I did my little yarn crawl in Calgary, I went to every shop and tried to buy something from every shop. So I went to Villa Kula. I'll show you fabric first. I went to Villa Kula Handmade, which is a really new yarn shop in Calgary. She has yarn and she has fabric, and I saw this adorable succulent garden fabric. It's a wonderful teal color with these different succulent things, and I'll make myself a little project bag out of that. Pudding Yarn, which is a great shop. Loved going to Pudding. I found this that I have never seen before. This is from Blue Sky Alpacas. It is the colorway Cherry Blossom. And it's a bountiful blend of 55% baby alpaca and 45% fine merino. And it is it's amazing. It's so soft. I love cuddling it. It's actually a bigger skein. It's 150 grams instead of most skeins come in about 100 gram weight, or even 50 if it's a smaller one. This is 150. And I think it's about a bulky weight. I thought it would be perfect for like a baby cardigan or something like that. So I just bought one, and I'll figure out something to make with it. But it was just so squishy and soft, and I'd never seen it before, so I had to have it. I also, like I said, went to the Loop Kensington, which is one of their stores, and was so excited to find Woolmies. Woolmies is an indie dyer from Germany and quite popular. I've heard lots of people talking about their yarns, and they also come in jumbo skeins. This is 150 grams, although it doesn't look it. It's very heavy. She likely uses some sort of professional winder thing because this is wound up so tight. They say with Woolmies to not unskein it until you're ready to use it, because you'll never get it back into this tiny little thing. So I don't have plans for it yet. Maybe a shawl. It's 80/20 wool polyamide. I don't know if Peggy is the colorway name. It says Peggy there. I'm not sure why that might be the colorway name, or that might mean something else, but got that. Then I went to Stash, because Stash Needle Lounge in Calgary, if you ever are there, I mean, go to all their shops, but Stash was the highlight for me. and they have Brooklyn tweed, which we can't find anywhere else locally. So I just bought one skein. It's only 50 grams. This colorway is called Sweatshirt. It's 100% American wool grown in Wyoming. And like I had said, this is fingering weight. I don't know what I can get out of this, or maybe I'll throw it into something else. But I saw it. I don't have any. Brooklyn tweed's kind of one of those iconic, kind of, in my head anyways, yarns, and so I just wanted to be able to say I had Brooklyn tweed in my stash, so I just bought one. Also at Stash, I had bought a Hedgehog mini. This is not going to show up at all. It's called Highlighter. It's their neon yellow, and I bought it because I also recently online purchased some Long Dog yarns. I've been looking at her stuff for quite some time, and I love it. I love her bright colors and all the various colors she gets into one skein. So I had bought these. And can we just talk about her label for a minute? How cute is it? It's a dog, and it like ties into the word of Long Dog yarn. And this like vellum, is that what that's called? This kind of opaque see-through kind of paper. I love it. So the colors are showing up okay. They're a little bit more vibrant. This is actually like fluorescent yellow. So when you hold up the highlighter to it, that's what I bought that for, was for heels and toes for a sock out of this. This is her sock yarn. It's 80% superwash merino wool, 20% nylon. This colorway is electric parakeet. And this one I think is called Cassata. And it just has so many colors in it. Makes me happy, and lots of speckling and yarn babies. I love my yarn babies. I also online purchased a sock blank from Nicole at Hue Loco. She ingeniously decided to, instead of, using a towel or paper towel or something as she's dyeing, in her pots, she just sets and makes a mess on some sock blanks and then sells them. It's amazing. I often think that when I'm dyeing, that all the colors that come onto a paper towel or something actually create something really unique and beautiful. And so I was excited to be able to get one of her sock blanks. So as I said, up until recently, we didn't have a yarn market here in Edmonton, and then we did. Some wonderful ladies decided to get together and create Edmonton's first market. So that was called Edmonton Fiber Frolic, and I had gone with my friend Lisa, and we had a lovely time. If you follow me on Instagram, you'd know all about it. And Haven Fiber Arts, which is Jess, and she's actually local to us here in Edmonton. She was one of the ladies that put on the market, and she had a booth there as well. She's a dyer, and so I've been wanting to get some of her yarn, so it was the perfect opportunity, and I picked up these 2 skeins from her. Look at all that speckling. She is so good at speckling. So this one here is called Guilty Pleasure. It's her true sock, which is 8515 superwash merino nylon, and it is so soft. Out of these skeins, I'll make some sort of shawl. Maybe not together, but I'll probably, these will be a shawl, not a sock, just because they're so soft, and I love them. This one's called Popsicle Stand, and it's this robin's egg blue with all these colorful speckles. I'm excited to use those. Good job, Jess. Sadly, she just actually posted on Instagram that she's planning to take the summer off. So, not sadly for her. I'm happy for her to be able to spend more time with her family and take a break from dyeing. But I really, really hope she comes back because she creates incredible yarn. I love it. We have a newer yarn shop in Edmonton called Alberta Yarn Project. And they really focus on locally dyed yarns and or locally created yarns. They get stuff from Custom Woolen Mills, which is a mill here in Alberta, and I love their local focus. I think it's fantastic. And Allie, who is one of the owners of the shop, does Nomad Fiberworks. So Allison, this is hers, and this was in Oiler colors, and so of course I just had to have it. We're big hockey fans in this house. and it has a little bit of fire star, which is like a sparkle. I don't know if that's showing up at all on the camera. And it is merino and Corriedale wool and fire star. It's about 65 grams, and it feels really nice, and I'm excited to spin it. I'm going to spin it on this new spindle I got from the Calgary Fiber Shindig. Sadly, I forget the name of the maker, but I really like this unique kind of hook that he has, and he uses recycled wood for all of his whorls. So this is old hardwood flooring, and then he's got a notch in it here. You can see that notch, yeah, where the string comes up. That notch is important to me. I know some spindles don't have it, and I really like to have that notch. I find it just keeps everything together a little bit better. And it has a nice little grip here at the bottom too. So I don't know yet how I'm going to spin that. If I'll, like as I draft it, if I'll spin some white and then some orange and blue, or how I haven't planned out yet how I'm going to do the colors or the plying or anything at all yet. But that'll be one of my next spinning projects. Well, thank you so much for joining me today with my first projects and all that I'm working on here. I've made a total mess on my craft room. It's going to take me an hour to clean up. But before I go, I thought I would announce our first giveaway. So I would love to host some giveaways, some knit-alongs, and all those things that most podcasters normally do. And recently, my friend Lisa and I have started a hand-dyeing yarn company called Boss Lady Yarn Company. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook and Etsy as at Boss Lady Yarn Co. And we are excited to be bringing and adding to the hand-dyeing market. And so today I thought I would release our first 2 colorways, and we're going to give one away and a few other things. So if you go to my Woolly Jenny podcast Ravelry group, you'll find the thread on there for the giveaway thread. And so without further ado, actually I'll show you a few of the things that we've been doing as we've been practicing. We've been getting to know our dyes and our base. We've started with just one base for now, and we'll get more in future updates. We'll get more bases. So these were just some minis that we had dyed while we were practicing with color. This is one that we had dyed that I knit up afterwards because I was curious to see how those speckles knit up. This one is for sure going to become a colorway. I even already have her named, but we're not revealing her just yet. And without further ado, dun, da, da, I'll show you Lisa's favorite first. Her name is Amanda. And there she is. She is a periwinkle purpley blue with some darker navy purpley blue. The yellow is actually fluorescent yellow, although it doesn't show up that way on the camera, and then a peachy, vibrant pink. So all of our colorways, since we're Boss Lady Yarn Company, all of our colorways will be named after ladies. And this was Lisa's brainchild, and this one is mine. Her name is Chelsea, and she is kind of a minty green with a light orangey, pinky blush color with a soft yellow and then some lovely speckles. I don't know if you could see the speckles in there. They'll be quite speckled. It's just the way it's skeined. So that's Chelsea. And with your skein of yarn, you'll also get, since Lisa and I are best friends and we love to go for coffee, I have these cute little coffee progress keepers. You'll get 2, one for you and your knitting bestie. And then since I also love rainbows, you'll get a little rainbow set of light bulb removable stitch markers. Ta-da! If you are a maker and you have stuff that you would like for me to feature on the podcast or stuff for me to give away, I would love to do that. Please contact me either through Ravelry or direct message on Instagram, and we can chat about what that would look like for you and how we could do that. And that's it. Thank you so much for staying tuned with me. I know that was long, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. And I'll probably be posting about once a month. I think once a week, once every 2 weeks is going to be too much for my life. But I look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Bye.
Every path's got a purpose. Every road's got a reason. Here's a little advice. I know it's worth believing. Baby, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna make it someday.